Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel and the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. My name is Ross Benjamin. I'm your host, as always, and like every Tuesday afternoon, and it is Tuesday, December the 19th, less than a week before Christmas, I'm always joined by Mr. Paul Bovi, a fellow handicapper over at our sponsor, gamblersworld.net. Paul, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Ross. Another week coming up. We're getting late into the NFL season. A lot of injuries piling up, but still money to be made, and we're right on the cusp of bowl season as well. So it's a great time of year if you're a football fan.
All right, couple of promos I need to go over with you folks, so bear with me, and it would be well worth you listening to what the promos are, because today we dropped the college football bowl package from $299 down to $200. Still plenty of action left to be played in college football bowl season. Over 30 games still left, so a lot of opportunities to make money, and we have 10 of the finest handicappers in the country that you could utilize in that regard, including myself and Paul and 8 other great handicappers. And the good thing about any subscription plan with us, 30 days or fewer, or our bowl package, for example, or our single game or multi-game daily packages, we guarantee them, folks. And what we mean by that is if you don't win, you don't make a profit, we will credit back your account the exact amount of your purchase price. And again, that's money taken out of your pocket to make the purchase. So I can clarify, if you buy a $299 college football bowl package and use $50 in credit that you've had at the site, you're going to be refunded $249 if you don't make a profit. Again, folks, I don't want that to sound like a sign of weakness that we give you credit and a guarantee. The bottom line is, and Paul will attest to this, he's been actually doing it longer than I have, and he bets a hell of a lot more money than I do as well. That you don't win every day, in timing is everything in this industry. Correct, Paul? I mean, you could be on a 10-1 roll and lose 4 of your next 5, and somebody might jump in at that particular moment in time. So that's where our credit guarantee goes. Again, Paul, you could tell the folks a little bit more too, because especially it's not always about what you've done for me lately. It's about what you've done over the long haul, especially when you're betting the kind of money you do.
Yeah, it's not a straight line up, Ross. If it was, everybody would be doing it. There are gyrations that you have to deal with. There's volatility in the business. You're going to go on streaks, good and bad, and you just have to roll with the punches. And sometimes timing is not in your favor. Let's put it this way. I had some Jacksonville State at Pick'em. I had some Jacksonville State at -1, and I had some Jacksonville State at 3. So it depends on when you get in these games too. So you want to get early numbers, and that's something I've stressed over the last few weeks.
Yeah, and you could purchase from a guy like me, who was 14-6 since last year with his bowl picks, and purchased my Old Dominion pick yesterday and watched them blow a 28-0 lead and a 35-14 lead going into the fourth quarter. And the game goes overtime. They allow Western Kentucky to score a touchdown on a fourth and goal from the 15-yard line with 29 seconds left to play. They get first and goal from the 1-yard line, and four attempts, no score. And they end up losing the game in overtime by 3. So, again, those are the kind of picks where at times us as handicappers look back at and say, would I make that same pick again? And I would unequivocally say yes, because I don't see a backup quarterback coming in, throwing for over 300 yards, a team that has their whole offensive line that opted out into the transfer portal, coming back from 28-0 down. But it happened. And we don't talk about the games we win like that. We always tend to cry. There's a reason why ESPN has a feature called Bad Beats, because that's what people focus on. They don't realize, Paul, and we do, that when you have a game like yesterday that I lost, there's also games equally as in the amount. I'm a thorough believer those types of games even out. Those ones where I just described yesterday as compared to the ones you win like that. It's being on the right side of games that win decisively as compared to those that don't. is what separates you from the rest.
Yeah, 50% of these games are going to be decided by luck. Worry about the other 50%.
Yep.
That's what you have to do to be successful. Yeah, I'll just make a point on that Western Kentucky game. The total dropped from 55 to 49. So it confounded a lot of smart bettors, as did the side, because Old Dominion, escalated from what,
Yep.
2 to 4 to 5 at one point. So
It
these
went to
bowl
6.5, Paul.
six and a half. These
Yeah.
bowl lines have been just moving all over the place, and sometimes the smart money is not right, but
Yep.
over the long haul, it generally is. So you want to be on the smart side of it. You were on the smart side of it with Old Dominion, and it just didn't work out. And yes,
Yeah.
three of those offensive linemen were out. They did opt out, went into the portal, but unfortunately, it just one of those games that just didn't work out.
Yeah, their starting quarterback, he was not available. So it happens. And that's why, the bowl season can be topsy-turvy. Sometimes they call them the NCAA tournament in basketball, March Madness. Well, yesterday was December Madness. What can you say? Now, I told you the bad story. The good story is I feel very fortunate that I had Seattle last night. I had them plus 3.5. They're down 4. Backup quarterback again, Drew Lock. Takes them 92 yards in the last 2 minutes of the game for a score, and they end up winning the game. And not only covering, but winning the game outright. So, yeah, that's the other side of the equation where I was going with that, Paul. And the bottom line is, and I was discussing this with Jim Quinn off air, our tremendous owner over here at Winner's Circle, and also at gamblersworld.net. But the Philadelphia Eagles, they may have played their best defensive game in the last 5 weeks, but it still wasn't good enough because you don't allow a backup quarterback to go 92 yards with less than 2 minutes to go. And it boggles my mind when you look at their numbers over the last 5 weeks. You can't continue to outscore people the way you're used to doing this year. Sooner or later, you got to stop people too. And they're not doing that. And I go back, they've lost, 3 in a row? And their last win came against Buffalo, a game they allowed over 500 yards in and needed a 61-yard field goal in a driving rainstorm to tie the game and send it over overtime. So we could be looking at a team that's lost their last 4, and then Dallas against Buffalo on Sunday. What happened with them? I mean, they just didn't show up, and they were dominated physically in that game, Paul.
Yeah, and the Cowboys have had 4 epically poor defensive performances, notably on the road.
Yeah.
It started off with that game in Arizona when they came in. I believe they were 2-0, and the Cardinals just ran right through them. So, okay, maybe you chalk that up to an aberration, but this is continued throughout the year. And to come in and be dominated like that, well, the one thing that did happen is, or what won't happen, there won't be any chatter about Dak Prescott getting the most valuable player award in the league this year, because he was awful and inexcusable. Because it's not like the Bills have been lights out defense this year. They have a strong pass rush, but they have had breakdowns. And the Cowboys, they're looking like a fugazi, as are the Philadelphia Eagles. The division is just not up to par. Or so it seems. The Eagles, as you pointed out, look, this was 10-1 and a house of cards waiting to fall. They had several nail-biting wins, and they got by, notably against Washington, as well as a few others. And it finally came apart. It finally fell apart at the seams. And the Eagles look like another struggling team that's going to just limp down the stretch, probably win the division because of the Cowboys' schedule, but it doesn't look pretty right now.
Absolutely not. And there's nothing more demoralizing if you're Dallas than to lose in the manner in which you did. Not only did they fall behind 31-3 and eventually, oh, by the way, touchdown made it 31-10. It's the fact that Josh Allen didn't even reach 100 yards passing, and he only had 15 pass attempts. They just jammed the ball down their throat, Paul, and beat them up physically on both sides of the ball. They ran for 266 yards. If you're a championship quality team and you're a Super Bowl quality team, you know what? That's not going to get it done.
No.
Yeah, things happen. I had Buffalo. I really weighed things up and said, I know you like the Bills in that game too, as well, if I recall correctly.
I actually did not. I
Oh, you
I
did?
actually took a step back and I go, the
Yeah,
Cowboys just seem like a better team
yeah,
than Buffalo. Buffalo has struggled this year, but I'm going to cite not only the Arizona game, but you look at that 49er game, 42-10, and
yeah.
and the 49ers parked the bus. They just stopped putting points on the board. They just stopped trying. They didn't need to do anything more. Same thing pretty much happened on Sunday, and it's just been very ugly for the Cowboys. If they continue to play this type of football, yeah, maybe the conference is weak and they'll get through it or have a shot to. But if they take on a reasonable AFC opponent, I don't see him standing a chance.
I don't see him standing a chance against San Francisco, to be quite honest with you. Again, look at here's the elephant in the room is them playing on the road. I mean, at home they've been
Yeah.
extremely dominant. It's on the road is where they struggle, and especially against good teams. I mean, yeah, granted they got upset by Arizona earlier in the year, and they made Joshua Dobbs, who was Arizona's starting quarterback at the time, look like the second coming of Joe Montana, which we all know that not to be true. But having said that, again, Paul, I made the comment earlier in the year. When I say earlier in the year, 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I kept repeating myself, and I took some flack with the comment section on our videos, but I called Pittsburgh a fraud and I called Jacksonville a fraud. And I also told you, and again, not to sound like a homer, but when Buffalo was 6-6 and they moved all the way up to 50-1 to win the Super Bowl, it might be worth a flyer on them. And it's still a flyer, right? They're not even right now. If the season ended, they wouldn't be in the playoffs. But my point with Pittsburgh and Jacksonville, more so Pittsburgh than Jacksonville, was the fact that when you look at the fact they're 7-3 and their point per game and yard per game differential was minus. And not only minus, they were like minus 4 point per game differential and like minus 70 yards per game. I mentioned, again, when we get this deep in the season and you're winning like that, it's not sustainable. So if you continue to play like that, which is to me just winning lucky, you're not a well-coached team. You're not a good team that's finding ways to win. You're winning lucky. Jacksonville along the same lines. You look at their point per game differential, yard per game differential. Doesn't match up with the record. On top of that, Jacksonville can't win at home, and especially against good teams. So those are the types of things you look at. Buffalo, for example, to my point, even when they were 6-6, they're plus 9 points per game differential, and they're plus 65 yard per game differential. Again, it's not a no-brainer for me. That's what I do because I took Pittsburgh on Saturday. Okay. Regardless of what I said, I treat every week like it's its own separate entity. I know Paul does as well. But, that does not mean because I bring that to people's attention. It's something to really keep an eye on if you're looking for a contender or a pretender at this time of year, because now we have a large sample size and it's something I just can't ignore, Paul. I don't know how you feel about that aspect of your handicapping, but I certainly weigh in heavily on that at this time of year.
Well, I want to bring something out about Pittsburgh because I too was on the Steelers. In fact, it was my free pick last week, and I'll admit it, I whiffed. Now, I've been critical of the Steelers the entire year. I've been going against them, but I thought that was a great spot for them on Saturday because the Colts really haven't had a lot of success stopping the run, and I expected better out of the Steelers, but the problem was they could not run the football, and they struggled against New England, but actually gashed Green Bay for over 200 on the ground. And I look back on that game, thought that they'd get it done. And then you have the Mitch Trubisky factor. And I did say he was the X factor, and I don't believe he should be starting. I think they should have brought Mason Rudolph in a heck of a lot sooner than with 2 minutes to go in the game and them down multiple scores. That's not the way you treat a quarterback. Mason Rudolph played one full season, completed 62% of his passes, had 13 touchdowns versus 9 interceptions. At this point, the guy deserves another chance. It's 4 years removed. They've held on to him. Steelers, a very disappointing performance. Fortunately, when they were down 13-0, personally, I got off a lot of the game in live betting just because they only had 80 yards of offense.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the writing was on the wall. And sometimes, and this is caution that I would give to any gambler, hope is a very dangerous strategy. You have to act. If you see your position and it's not a favorable one, you want to cut your losses or at least minimize them and take another position. And if you have to get out of the game, especially when it's in your favor, you have to do so because you'll live to play another game. As far as Jacksonville goes, look, the Jaguars actually deserved a better fate the other night. Trevor Lawrence was unmolested and dropped the ball. They had 2 field goal misses. They actually could have been in that game if not for all these miscues. And the final score, I don't think, is clearly indicative of the game itself. I did have the Ravens, but I noticed the Jags were getting a few things done. They were without a few key players on defense. They were the previous week against Cleveland. That was a problem, notably cornerback, safety. Cisco was out. So I would look to the Jaguars to be more competitive if they get healthier and are just in a better position to hold on to the football and not make mistakes. They should fare better moving forward.
Yeah, it's been a prominent issue with Trevor Lawrence since he came into the NFL. He's definitely a talented quarterback. There's no two ways about that. He checks all the boxes, but he has a tendency, in this particular manner in which you were just talking about, an unforced error. I'd never heard it put where he was unmolested, but that's something I have to keep in my memory bank because I know Dak Prescott, well, he must have been molested. Never mind. Anyway, yeah. And it goes hand in hand to what I just said with the point per game and yard per game differential on teams being an indicator of whether they're a pretender or a contender. Paul brought up the same thing. Instead of getting a false sense of security when you got up 13-0, he looked and says, you know what? They're not running the ball well. And I don't see that changing. And on top of that, they only got 80 yards of total offense and they got 13 points. So exactly what I'm trying to say. Sometimes just the scores itself, again, look, you got to score more points to win the game, right? I mean, obvious. But, I mean, when you're looking at things big picture and looking at things in as far as future bets, those are the types of things you need to account for. All right, let's get back to, we're going to be discussing 2 games in the NFL today. I'm going to be looking at the Lions and the Vikings, and Paul will be looking at a big matchup in the AFC between the Browns and the Houston Texans. Before I get to that, folks, just a friendly reminder, we got our 12 days of savings, not 12 days of Christmas, but it correlates. 12 days of savings at the site. If you go to our site every day at gamblersworld.net, we have a different special every day. I mentioned that we dropped our price on our college football bowl package from $299 to $200. Also today, if you go to the site, Oskheim Sports, Jeff Oskheim, who's been red hot in all sports, and he's got a free pick he's given away, and he's also, if anybody wants to buy his single game, multi-game daily packages or his subscription plans, just today till midnight tonight, we're giving everybody 20% off on Oskheim Sports. So you want to take a look at the leaderboard and see Jeff Keim has been just killing it. He's got a long track history like all of us of winning. And you want to take advantage of that offer, folks. And again, even with the 20% off, you're getting that guarantee that if you don't win, you don't make a profit, we will credit back your account. Okay, let's get to the game. The Cleveland Browns traveling on the road to Houston. Right now, the Texans are a 2.5 point favorite, and the total in this game is 42.5. And Paul, I look at Cleveland and I look at how dominant they are defensively at home. And they were again last Sunday. That's what's won the game for them, in my estimation. Joe Flacco's certainly been a welcome addition, but it's not like he's tearing it up. Okay, he's getting a lot of pass yards. Still has thrown 5 interceptions against 7 touchdowns. The Browns defense, if they're going to win this year and they're going to make the playoffs and they're going to make a deep run, it's going to be because of their defense. Here's what concerns me. When you look at their home and away splits defensively, at home, they're allowing just a shade over 13 points per game and under 200 yards per contest. Okay. On the road, it's been a whole different story. 30 points allowed per game. And they're allowing 11 points per yard, which is extremely bad. So anyway, I'll let you take it away. What's your thoughts on that game and where are you going with this?
Well, Houston was without C.J. Stroud last week.
Right.
Tank Dell went on the IR. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, one of the other receivers was out as well. I'm not sure if Nico Collins. Nico Collins was out. Schultz stepped up. Basically, this offense is a lot better with Stroud. Okay, needless to say, Keenum did a good job. I'm not going to say he didn't do a good job. He did. He throws much shorter passes. He found Dalton Schultz numerous times in the second half. But I think this offense has to get back to Stroud, getting the ball downfield. Thankfully, Tunzel was in the lineup, so they were able to get off running the ball on the left-hand side. And when he's in the lineup, he is a difference maker. And on the other side, yeah, you brought up a point about the Browns. I'm not entirely sold on their defense at times. At times it's good. At times it's not. But Joe Flacco has definitely been a welcome addition. And the one thing I could say about the Texans, their secondary is not very good. They have been lit up repeatedly this year. So I did notice that on several occasions, Will Levis had open guys running in the middle of the field. He was able to hit a few of them. Unfortunately, they had one where he did hit Hopkins, I think around 35 yards down the field, and Hopkins put the ball on the ground. It was reviewed and it was called back. But I could see some points here. I really can. I definitely think that Flacco will have better success here than he had against the Bears. The Bears have really stepped up defensively since they've gotten healthy. They got their corners back. They missed their corners, by the way, had missed multiple games with injuries. Brisker at safety, who had 17 tackles 2 weeks ago, had missed a couple games. And I think he's going to face an easier defense this week, that he'll find some seams. There'll be some points in this game. And I think 42.5 comes in at a pretty reasonable level to go over the total. I mean, 23-20 is going to get you there. And a couple of weeks back, Cleveland played Jacksonville, had to hold on, gave up 27. I'm going to go with the over here, and I think 44 is fair value here. So at 42.5, I think you're getting the best of it.
Yeah, and it goes hand in hand to what I just said about Cleveland's and at what the point I'm about to make. When I said their home and away splits defensively, there's a huge disparity. Hard to figure out. Same thing with Dallas. I mean, look at their offensive numbers home and away. But even more so with Cleveland's defense. And the fact, Paul, Cleveland's been a great underplay at home. Let's see here. I think they've gone over or under the total in all but one of their home games. On the road, the Browns are 6-0 to the over. So there you have it. And to Paul's point, Houston, you're looking at some games here. They gave up 260 yards in the air to the Jets. And Zach Wilson, they made him look like the second coming of Joe Namath. 364 yards against Jacksonville, 314 yards in the air against Cincinnati in a game that Jake Browning played half of that game. And Tampa Bay, they allowed 251 yards to Baker Mayfield. So they've been very significant. 341 yards to New Orleans, 351 yards to Atlanta. Come on, New Orleans and Atlanta, you give up that many yards in the air, you got some question marks in the secondary, my friend.
Yeah, exactly. And don't get fooled by that Denver game, because they are led by Russell Wilson, who's down several notches this year and is just not getting it done prolifically, let's say. He's just kind of pedestrian. So they were lucky to hold on in that game. Denver had the ball in the red zone, couldn't break through, and Houston holds on. But I think they're going to have a little bit more of a problem right here.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so Paul likes the Cleveland Browns and the Houston Texans to go over 42.5, and he makes a very compelling case for that to occur. So there you have it, folks. Now let's get to my game, which is a NFC North battle. The Detroit Lions in the Minnesota Vikings game that will be played in Minnesota. Right now, the Lions are a 3-point road favorite, and the total here is 47. You look at these two teams' record. The Vikings 7-7. They've lost their last two. The Lions come in off a win. They're 10-4. They just need one more win to clinch the division. And a lot of people out there are probably wondering, geez, I thought they already clinched the division. But here's the elephant in the room in this one, okay? Do I think the Lions are an overall better team than the Vikings? Absolutely, okay? But again, folks, the better team on paper does not always win, no matter what sport you're handicapping. And I just think this is a situation where the Vikings will be playing with a ton of urgency and desperation at home. Now, think about this for a second, and I'm being very hypothetical. The Lions have to face the Vikings 2 of their last 3 games. One in Minnesota, final regular season game of the year. They host the Vikings. In between those 2 games, they have the Dallas Cowboys on the road. And I just mentioned how good Dallas is at home compared to on the road. So it's quite conceivable. Basically, the Lions know that to win the division, doesn't matter what happens the next 2 weeks. They just have to beat the Vikings in their home finale. The Vikings, on the other hand, they got 3 games left. Obviously, 2 with the Lions, like I just alluded to. And they got in between, they got Green Bay at home. Very winnable game. I think anybody would agree with that. Not to say that they're going to absolutely win, but in when you look at things on the surface, that's a very winnable game for the Vikings at home. And the Vikings right now, even with that 7-7 record, are the number 6 seed in the AFC. Okay, but they're not out of they could still win this division, Paul. I mean, if they sweep Detroit and knock off Green Bay at home, and Detroit loses at Dallas next week, they're going to win the division, believe it or not. Now, do I think that it'll occur? I think it'll be a very tough ask, not only for them to win this week, but also to beat them twice, especially at home. But I think in this particular moment of time, in this particular situation, that urgency and desperation are going to prevail. And also, this is a big game for Minnesota, not only to keep alive for the division, but to be a wild card team, because there's several teams breathing down their neck at 7-7 and 6-8 that they hold tiebreakers on. So Detroit, again, they're just 2-2 in their last 4 on the road. And here's what concerns me, Paul. I love those home and away splits, and there's something to them, but it has to make sense. And the Lions, although they're 2-2 in their last 4 on the road, they've allowed 33 points per game and over 400 yards per game. Now, the Minnesota defense, I've been saying this all year long, Paul. I don't think people give the Minnesota defense the credit they deserve. This is a very good defensive unit. And over the last 5 games, they've proven that. Even though they've lost their last 2, it's not because of their defense, that's for sure. They've allowed 15.8 points and 294 yards per game in their last 5 games. Nick Mullins took over at quarterback, relieved Joshua Dobbs 2 games ago, came in the latter half of the last quarter of that game and against Cincinnati, the game before that they lost, I think at the Bears. Raiders, okay, at the Raiders. And he completed, I think, like 7 of 9. Anyway,
8 of 13.
8 of 13. Last week he comes in, he goes 26 out of 33 for 303 yards. Unfortunately, 2 costly interceptions as well as 2 touchdown passes cost them the game. But this guy gave him a chance to win. Okay, and then they ran the ball really effectively last week. That's something Detroit has always been good at, or was good at in the first half of the season, but that sort of has dissipated late, especially on the road. I don't know. Paul, I just think everything adds up to me to this is a good spot for the home underdog. I would not be shocked whatsoever if they win the game outright, and I better feel that way because we're only getting 3 points. But I'm going to take the Vikings here plus the 3 over the Lions.
All right. By the way, it was 9 of 13, but
yeah, that's okay.
So it's 35 of 46 for a shade under 400 yards in the 2 games that he's been in.
76% completion rate.
Yeah. Which is a far cry from what happened early in that Raider game. And of course, we know those teams battled down the stretch with goose eggs until one of them prevailed 3-0. But that offense has kind of gotten in gear. They've gotten back on track. And you made a point about the Detroit defense, and I'm going to go back to Russell Wilson. Denver had 75 yards of offense in the first half. This is not untypical of the Denver Broncos. I'm sorry. I like Russell Wilson. He's a nice guy, good family man, but his days as a quarterback or a productive one in the NFL are waning. And he's really not getting it done. He's checking down a lot. And so the Detroit defense looked a lot better than they actually are. Now, you can go back a couple games ago, and Derek Carr put up a very high completion percentage with over 200 yards, 10.2 yards per attempt. The Chargers went up and down the field against them. They've had some real rough defensive outings. And then you go back to that Thanksgiving game where, Jordan Love was basically owning them in the first half. I'm not going to look strictly at the Bronco game and look at what they did defensively, although the second half wasn't that good, but maybe they got a little comfortable and just kind of like relaxed a little bit and let Denver just do what they wanted to do, feeling that they had the game under control. But I'm not sold on this Detroit defense. Where I'll probably go with this game on a personal level, and I do agree with you in part, I'm probably going to play Minnesota's team total over. This way, if Jared Goff happens to outscore me, along with St. Brown and the other weapons that they have, I'll be safe if the Vikings come up with 23 points or more. So that's where I'll probably go because I have confidence in Mullins. I don't have a lot of confidence in the Lion defense. And yes, they have a shot to win the division here if they win this game. And I wouldn't want to be in the Lions' shoes on that last game of the season if after that juggernaut of a start, they're playing for the division and their playoff lives.
It's a very distinct possibility based on the remaining schedule. And, of course, all will be a moot point if Minnesota doesn't win this game at home coming up. I made the mistake of saying Minnesota lost their last 2. I stand corrected. They won the Las Vegas game, the game before Cincinnati, 3-0. They've lost 3 of their last 4, and those 3 losses came by a combined 6 points. As a matter of fact, again, we're looking at teams, pretenders and contenders, in an underrated team. I think Minnesota's an underrated team. You look at the record, 7-7, okay? All 7 of their losses have come by 7 points or fewer. So this is a team that's been right there all year long. Unfortunately, they lost their starting quarterback. That put a big hit on them, but their defense has been hanging in there and keeping them in games where they don't deserve to be in. when you talk about their offensive production. But last week wasn't one of them, Paul. They 425 yards against Cincinnati, who's Cincinnati's not exactly a great defense. Another team that likes to outscore people. But having said that, they ran the ball good. Ty Chandler, I can't remember where he came from college-wise, but he's a rookie. And he only had like 200 yards going into that game for the season. He went over 100 yards. So, again, I like Minnesota here plus the 3 against Detroit. Paul has a lean toward the Minnesota team total.
Hey, by the way, Ross, I would say this.
Yeah.
You made a great point that all of their games have come by, the losses have come by 7 points or less. That might bode well to take Minnesota in a teaser if you're not confident in what Ross is telling you, because this way you're protected. You can go with a 6-point teaser, a 7-point teaser at this point would get you up to 10, and just find another team and throw it in there and give yourself some insurance. In fact, I might actually look towards that. So great point on the in bringing that out. They are all the time competitive, and they'll at the very least, should be competitive here.
Yeah, and it's 6-point teaser. You're crossing 3 key numbers. So, yeah, I'm not a teaser guy. You know what I mean? So, and I'm pretty confident what I'm doing right now in the NFL. And your point's well taken, Paul. I know exactly what you're saying, because I don't care if you go 17-0 over the last 4 weeks, somebody will always question your pick. But I'm 52-35 since week 2 in the NFL. That's 60%, folks. If you make 60% of your decisions in life all right, you're living pretty damn good. Paul, tell the folks a little bit about what you foresee in the bowl season and the NFL coming up this week. Anything else that you want to touch upon? Are you going to dabble in some basketball eventually? What are we doing here?
I'm not sure about the NBA. I used to be a big NBA guy. I had done a podcast with Tim Donaghy for 5 years, by the way, and I was hitting damn near 60% of my games for quite some time. But I'm not as much of an NBA aficionado or fan as I used to be. I still follow the Knicks, so I can't say what's in my future as it applies to basketball. But on football, this I will tell you, I'm dialed into the NFL. I'm dialed into college. My top bowl play, which I posted at the very beginning when the Lions came out, played it right there. It goes on Thursday. It's the Boca Raton Bowl. It's South Florida and Syracuse, so it's up there right now. And I will also say that my early movers on the NFL generally work because I get the best of the number. Now, I did last week. I posted the Bears immediately at 3.5, and that was the difference maker because, as you know, and as we discussed, the Browns won that game by 3. Line actually dropped to 2.5, and I know you grabbed the 2.5, and you were the beneficiary of the line drop. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And I unfortunately did grab 3 at even money. I grabbed a little bit of 3.5 at the open, but I chose the even money route. Got off a little on the Browns live wagering as well, so it was a profitable venture for me. But I have 2 early games up there right now, and they did not move. And usually I catch the best of the number. I don't have the worst of it. I don't have the best of it. They're right where they opened. There was a little movement back in my favor, and it moved back to the original number. So I have a few NFL games up there. I gave you one opinion on Minnesota's team total, and I will have several NFL games up. My best bowl game, as I just mentioned, is going tomorrow night. I've been very successful in college football over the last month. Over the last several weeks, I jumped out to, I believe, a 1-1 start on the bowls. Jacksonville State, I posted at 3, although there was 2.5s to be had at the time of posting, and it showed up as 3, and I posted it right there. But anyway, I expect to have probably around 11 bowl games up in total, and I expect to win the majority of them.
There you go. Paul is right now number 2 in money earned at the site during this college football season. That's the entire season, folks. So, and this guy is a real live wise guy. I know that people scoff at that, but look, I've been in this industry quite a long time. I know people who know Paul. I know Paul has sent me copies of his tickets. I know him to be as credible as they come in this business. Paul is a big money player. So when he has a big play, you should pay attention. Matter of fact, his 10-unit picks, we're only allowed to give out 2 10-unit picks per month. Paul has made 5 of those picks this year. He's hit on 4 of them. Okay.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Well,
Yeah.
that's good to know. That's
Yeah.
great.
And I could assure you, if he's giving it out as a 10-unit pick, that's, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, probably somewhere around a 5-dime play. So at least 3 minimum anyway. So
I'm playing, let's put it this way. I am playing the game. I am not posting merely to sell or to steer people to a game unless I have a 10-unit play, a huge vested interest in it.
yeah.
I care about people winning. I care about winning, but I care just as much about others winning because I know I was the guy like 30 years ago, maybe more, that I bought picks. Okay.
Yeah.
And I hated when I bought a losing pick off a guy who I later find out didn't have any skin in the game. So I've learned a lot about this business over the years, and I've taken what I've learned and applied it to the way I do business on a very ethical level.
There you go. Truer words were never spoken, is what I was about to say. And also, folks, that takes me to this. 30 years ago, there was a lot of shysters in this industry. The internet was in its infant stages. There wasn't a lot of checks and balances. It was not uncommon to pick up the USA Today during the week and see a plethora of sports betting ads, sports services, they were called back then. And all of them, for the most part, came up with some records that were just embarrassing, quite frankly, to guys like me and Paul now when you stop and think about it. Nowadays, that's pretty much been diluted because people don't pick up the phone if they don't recognize the number. Shame on you if you get sold by somebody that you can't even look up with a Google search these days and find anything on them. Okay, that should be a red flag right off the bat. So again, the guys we have on our site, you do a Google search on any one of them. There's always going to be somebody who we caught at the wrong time that might have something negative to say. But I could tell you that I'll go out on a limb and say 90% or more of the comments or the articles that you're going to see when you Google search any one of us are going to be of the positive variety. And there's a reason for that. Okay. It's not a conspiracy. We're not paying Google. Those are things that are out of our control. So again, all right. So I also care about you winning. I just mentioned 52 and 35 since week 2. And that's good for 60%. My NFL totals 14 and 6 on a 14 and 6 run, I should say. College football since December 2nd of last year, it's now over a year, 71 and 51. Unfortunately, despite the fact that I'm off to a 1-3 start in the bowl season, I totally think that by the end of the bowl season, you're going to be quite happy with me because since last year, I went 13 and 4 last year. So, I mean, if you add in the 1-3 this year, still 14 and 7 since last year. And I've had historically, if you look at some of the stuff at Sports Capping, you'll see that I finished well when it comes to the bowl season. College basketball, 13 and 6 in 42 and 29 runs. A lot of money to be made there. My college basketball totals since February the 16th, these are all documented. Again, I can't document anything at our site, gamblersworld.net, before July, but you can at Sports Capping, 42 and 25 with my college basketball totals since February 16th of 2022 at 63%. My NBA sides, now this, again, goes beyond when we started in July, but again, folks, this is all documented at Sports Capping. My NBA sides, whether it be money line or point spread picks, and I don't give out big money line chalks. Okay, normally if I can get 135 or less on a 2.5 or less favorite, that's the direction I go. And with that being said, 57 and 25, 70% since April 11th of this year. All sports, okay? And we talk about betting a dime a game, 2 dimes a game, 3 dimes a game. Now, when I say this, folks, we don't want to intimidate you by saying, okay, this is what my dime players made, or Paul saying, it's not uncommon for me when I give out a 10-unit play or a 5-unit play for me to be betting 3 to 5,000 a game. If you can't afford it and that's not within your gambling bankroll, nobody's telling you have to do that. All right. But since August the 4th of this year, 210 and 151, all sports. And again, folks, when it comes to money line betting, I don't give out anything over 135, minus 135. That's 58%. And dime players that have been with me through that course of time, up $43,910. So there you have it. Paul Bovi and Ross Benjamin, a lot to like about buying our selections. And, folks, over the long haul, it's always a good thing to buy our subscription plans, not to judge us on 1 or 2 days, but our whole body of work. And again, you have the personal assurance and the peace of mind to know that if you don't win, you don't make a profit, then we will credit back your account the exact amount of purchase price. And you can use that at any time you wish on any one you wish. All right. And then if you have not subscribed, I mean, we're pretty close to 12,000 subscribers now, folks. And I can't thank you guys enough since the get-go when I started just doing solo videos to the point we're at right now. Without your unwavering support and loyalty, we wouldn't be at this point. But if you have not subscribed already and you're watching and you like what you hear, which I don't know why you wouldn't, because I bring on some of the best guests in the country when it comes to sports betting. We're not just a guy with a bachelor's degree in mass communications that can't get a job in sports. So, but if you want to work in sports betting, we can give you a job. No, we do this for a living, 24/7. Okay. And again, folks, subscribe and also hit that alert notification bell in your YouTube settings for the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel. And you will be notified immediately upon any of our 6 podcasts weekly being published on our channel. Don't forget to join us live Friday at 3 p.m. with Sean Higgs and Jesse Schule. You will answer all your questions and comments at that time. I'll be back tomorrow morning with Jesse and Sean, and we'll be talking more college football bowl action. Paul will be back with us next Tuesday after the Christmas break. So, Paul, I want to wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday season, my friend. And we appreciate all your efforts that you put in here, and you're definitely a feather in our cap.
Oh, same to you, Ross. It's great doing the show with you. You're a true pro.
Thank you, sir. And there you have it. So, and if you, there's a like button, folks. You know, it's Christmas time. Okay. I don't care if we gave you a loser the day before. We're putting forth the best effort possible to not only give you free pick winners. Okay. More importantly, we want to make you a smarter sports bettor today than you were yesterday. And that theme applies. I don't care if you watch a show 365 days a year. That's exactly what our goal is on every show. Because I know myself, when I listen to some of the guys I bring on here, I learn something new every day. And I think Paul will tell you the same. We never can know too much in this industry. So again, folks, hit that like button. Just a small token of your appreciation for the time, work, and effort that we put into giving you a quality podcast and making you a smarter sports bettor today than you were yesterday. For Paul Bovi and Mr. Jim Quinn, our owner, and Ross Benjamin, Merry Christmas to one and all. And take care and God bless. I'll see you in the morning, folks.